4 days from now, at exactly 1:36 in the afternoon Eastern Time, the planet Mercury will stop moving forward in the sky. It will hover at 26 degrees and 15 minutes of Cancer, hold its breath for what feels like an impossible silence, and then begin sliding backward through the zodiac. Most people will not notice. Most people will wake up on the 29th of June and scroll through their phones and drink their coffee and assume the strange tightness behind their ribs is just stress. Just the news, just the week catching up with them. But you are not most people. You clicked on this video because something inside you already knows that what is coming is not ordinary. Not a routine disruption. Not another astrology headline you can afford to skim. What is about to happen on the 29th of June is a triple convergence that has not occurred in over a decade. And if you do not understand what it is, how it operates, and what it demands from you before that window opens, you will spend the next 24 days reacting to a current you never saw enter the room. So stay here. Do not skip ahead. And whatever you do, do not skip number 3 on this list, because that single practice is the difference between surviving this retrograde and being reshaped by it. Before this window closes, you will understand 3 things. First, what Mercury retrograde in Cancer actually is, why this particular station is the rarest and most volatile of the entire year, and what makes the 29th of June unlike any other retrograde date you have lived through since 2013. Second, which 4 zodiac signs are standing directly in the path of this transit, what it is going to demand from each of them, and why the emotional disruption you are already feeling is not a glitch, but a signal. Third, the specific handwritten ritual that turns this retrograde from a 3-week spiral into a controlled release, a practice so precise that it uses the full moon, the salt of the ocean, and the earth beneath your feet to discharge what you have been carrying since childhood. That is what this video contains. That is why your instincts brought you here. Let us begin. Mercury retrograde happens 3 times a year. You already know that. What you may not know is that all 3 retrogrades of 2026 fall in water signs. The first was in Pisces. This one is in Cancer. The third will be in Scorpio. That pattern, all 3 retrogrades cycling through water in a single calendar year, last occurred in 2013. Think about that for a moment. Think about who you were in 2013. Think about what you were tolerating. Think about the relationships you had not yet outgrown, and the truths you had not yet spoken, and the version of yourself you were still performing because it felt safer than the alternative. That was the last time the cosmos ran this particular sequence, and now it is running it again. And you are standing at the midpoint. Pisces opened the wound in February. Cancer is about to put your hands inside it. And Scorpio, in October, will ask you whether you are finally willing to cauterize what needs to close. This is not 3 separate events. This is one long emotional surgery, divided into 3 incisions, and the one on the 29th of June cuts the deepest, because Cancer is the sign of origin. Cancer is where you learned what love was supposed to look like. Cancer is the kitchen table and the locked bedroom door, and the voice that told you to stop crying before you even understood why you started. Mercury retrograde in Cancer does not scramble your Wi-Fi. It does not merely reroute your packages or crash your group chat, though it will probably do those things too. What it actually scrambles is your origin story. It pulls up text messages you thought you deleted, and conversations you thought you buried, and emotional agreements you made with people who are no longer in your life, but whose rules you are still following. The previous Mercury retrograde in Cancer happened in June of 2020. Before that, June of 2014. That is a 6-year rhythm, and every time it returns to the same question. Are the walls you built to protect yourself now the walls that are keeping everything real on the outside? That is not a metaphor. That is the operational question of this entire transit, and the sky is about to demand your answer. But here is what separates the 29th of June, 2026, from every other Mercury retrograde in Cancer you have experienced. On the same day that Mercury stations retrograde at 26 degrees, Cancer, a full moon rises in Capricorn at 8 degrees and 15 minutes, the strawberry moon. And it does not rise gently. It rises into a T-square with Saturn in Aries, which means the moon is being squeezed between the pressure of your emotional past and the grinding demand of structures that are no longer holding weight. Saturn in Aries does not ask if you are ready. Saturn in Aries does not care that you are tired. It squares the axis of home and career and says, "Show me what is real, or I will show you what is not." And while that is happening, while the full moon is cracking open, the Capricorn-Cancer fault line and Mercury is freezing mid-sentence in the most emotionally loaded sign in the Zodiac. Jupiter is sitting at 29 degrees and 56 minutes of Cancer, the anaretic degree, the final degree. The last breath before Jupiter crosses into Leo on the 30th of June at 6:02 in the morning, ending a full year of expansion in its sign of exaltation. Jupiter has not been in Leo since 2014. That means everything Jupiter has been building in your emotional foundation, every lesson about belonging and safety, and what home actually means, reaches its absolute peak. On the same day, Mercury goes backward, and the full moon illuminates everything you have been avoiding. 3 transits. 1 day. And on that same night, Mars squares the lunar nodes, setting up a collision with Uranus in Gemini that perfects on the 4th of July at 3 degrees. This is not a retrograde. This is not a communication hiccup or a scheduling inconvenience. This is a detonation dressed in moonlight, and the blast radius covers every cardinal sign in the Zodiac and every unfinished emotional conversation you have been postponing since the last time Jupiter stood in this exact position 12 years ago. You already feel it. You have been feeling it since mid-June when the pre-retrograde shadow began on the 13th of June. That tightness in your jaw that will not release no matter how many times you stretch it. That heaviness behind your sternum. Not pain exactly, but pressure. As if there are words lodged between your ribs that have been there so long they calcified. Your sleep has changed. You wake at odd hours. You fall asleep, exhausted, and rise feeling like you ran through a house you have not visited in 20 years. Your stomach is unsettled for no dietary reason, because Cancer rules the stomach, and Mercury slowing down in Cancer means your body is digesting memories. It never finished processing. Some of you have noticed swelling, puffiness in the hands or face, water retention. That seems to arrive from nowhere. That is the water sign emphasis of the entire year pressing against your lymphatic system like a tide that does not fully recede. And around the full moon itself, your knees ache, your lower back stiffens, your joints feel older than your age, because Capricorn governs the skeletal system, and the bones know before the mind does that something structural is shifting. None of this is random. None of this is coincidence. None of this is something to push through with an extra cup of coffee and a productivity hack. These are your body translating a celestial event into the only language flesh understands. And if you ignore that language now, the retrograde will find louder ways to speak. Now let us talk about who stands directly in the corridor of this transit. 4 signs will feel this more acutely than the rest. And if your sun, moon, or rising sign falls in any of these, the next 24 days are not background noise. They are the foreground of your entire summer. Cancer. You are first because this is happening in your house. Mercury retrograde in your home sign means the scramble is not external. It is identity level. You will question things you thought were settled. Your own voice will sound unfamiliar in your own ears. End quote. Conversations from years ago will replay with new context, and you will realize that what you forgave was never fully processed. It was just filed away in a drawer you agreed not to open. Old emotional patterns will resurface, wearing new faces. A coworker will echo something your mother used to say. A friend will withdraw in a way that mirrors an abandonment you thought you had outgrown. Do not react in the first week. Write it down, instead. Let the retrograde show you the full picture. Before you respond to a single frame, the clarity comes in week 3, not week 1. Week 1 is the earthquake. Week 3 is the survey of what is still standing. Capricorn. The full moon at 8 degrees lands in your sign, and it lands opposite Mercury, which means the tension between your public ambitions and your private emotional reality reaches a visible peak. You have been building something. A career, a reputation, a structure you believed would hold. And now the moonlight is showing you the cracks you plastered over. This is not failure. This is the full moon doing exactly what full moons do. Illuminating what was hidden so you can decide whether to reinforce it or release it. The pressure from Saturn squaring your axis will feel like an endurance test. It is. But endurance is not the same as rigidity. Let the structure breathe or it will fracture under its own weight. Aries. Saturn is in your sign and it is squaring the full moon axis, which means the weight of responsibility and authority lands on your shoulders in a way that feels personal and relentless. You may feel tested by people who seem to question your competence or your patience. You may feel like every effort requires twice the energy for half the result. This is Saturn doing what Saturn does in Aries. It is teaching you the difference between force and endurance. Between pushing through a wall and having the discipline to walk around it. The retrograde will slow your momentum. Let it. The momentum was never the point, the direction was. Libra. You are the 4th cardinal sign, which means the entire Cancer, Capricorn, Aries cross activates your axis by opposition and square simultaneously. Partnership is your arena, and this retrograde will surface every imbalance you have been decorating instead of addressing. The people-pleasing patterns that once kept you safe are now keeping you small. You will feel pulled between what someone else needs and what you have been afraid to ask for. The full moon will illuminate the gap between harmony and honesty, and you will have to choose which one you are willing to sacrifice. Choose honesty. Harmony built on suppression is not peace. It is a holding pattern, and this retrograde is grounding every holding pattern in the Zodiac. The discomfort you feel in early July is not the relationship breaking. It is the performance of the relationship finally becoming too expensive to maintain. What remains after the performance stops is either real or it is not, and either answer is information you need. Here is what you must avoid between the 29th of June and the 23rd of July. Do not sign contracts, leases, or any binding legal agreement. Mercury rules the written word, and when it moves backward in Cancer, the emotional subtext beneath every agreement becomes unstable. What feels like a good deal on the 2nd of July will reveal a clause you missed by the 15th of July. Do not launch anything new. Not a business, not a product, not a creative project you have been saving for the right moment. This is not the right moment. This is the review, the revision, the rehearsal. The launch comes after the 23rd of July. Do not make permanent decisions about relationships while Mercury is retrograde in the sign that governs emotional bonds. Especially do not end something in the first week, the 29th of June through the 6th of July, when the Saturn square is active and every feeling is amplified beyond its actual proportion. Do not buy major electronics, vehicles, or appliances unless it is an emergency. Mercury retrograde is notorious for technical malfunctions, returns, and buyer regret, and in Cancer the regret carries an emotional weight that outlasts the receipt. Do not send the message. You know which one. The emotionally charged text to the family member, the voicemail you want to leave at 2 in the morning, The email you have rewritten 11 times. Save it as a draft. Walk away. Come back to it after the 6th of July at the earliest. And do not travel without redundancy, backup chargers, printed confirmations, an extra hour built into every connection. Mercury retrograde does not cancel travel. It tests whether you prepared for the version of travel that does not go according to plan. Build the buffer. Now you will thank yourself on the 8th of July when the delay hits, and you are the only person at the gate who is not panicking. Now, here is number 3, the one you were told not to skip. This is the practice that changes the retrograde from something that happens to you into something that moves through you with purpose. On the night of the 29th of June, under the strawberry full moon in Capricorn, you are going to write a letter by hand. Not on your phone, not on your laptop, by hand, with ink on paper. You are going to address this letter to yourself at the age you felt most unprotected. Maybe that is 7. Maybe that is 14. Maybe that is 31. You know the age. Your body has been telling you the age since the shadow period started on the 13th of June. You are going to write to that version of yourself, and you are going to tell them what actually happened. Not the version you rehearsed to make it bearable. Not the version you told your therapist in the sanitized language of coping. The version your bones remember. Write slowly. Let the pen move at the speed of memory, not the speed of productivity. You are going to tell that child, or that teenager, or that young adult, what they could not have known at the time. Which is that the thing they did to survive was not weakness. It was engineering. It was the most sophisticated emotional architecture a person that age could build. And it worked. And now you are going to thank it for working. And then you are going to tell it that it is no longer needed. When the letter is finished, read it aloud once in a room where no one else can hear. Let your own voice carry the words back to the version of you that never got to hear them. Then fold the letter and place it in a bowl of water with a single pinch of sea salt. Leave it overnight under the moonlight or near a window where the moon can reach it. In the morning, take the bowl outside and pour the water into the earth. Beside your door, not down the drain. Into the ground. This is a release ritual, not a manifestation ritual. You are not building. You are letting go of a story that has been running your nervous system like background software for years, maybe decades, and this particular combination of Mercury retrograde in Cancer, under a Capricorn full moon with Jupiter, at the final degree of its exaltation, is the exact celestial architecture designed for that release. Do not skip it. Do not modify it. Do not wait for a better night. The 29th of June is the night. The sky built it for you. Back up your devices before the 29th of June. Reread any contracts you signed after the 13th of June. Schedule one slow morning per week through the 23rd of July, where you do nothing but sit with your own thoughts. No phone, no podcast, no productivity. Just you and the quiet and whatever rises to meet you in the silence. That is how you work with this retrograde. That is how you turn a cosmic disruption into a deliberate clearing. Not by outrunning it. Not by pretending it is not real. By sitting still long enough to hear what Mercury has been trying to tell you since the shadow started, which is that the version of safety you built is finished, and the version of honesty you have been avoiding is ready. If this message found you at the right time, you already know it. You felt it land somewhere beneath the logic, somewhere in the body, somewhere in the part of you that does not need a chart to confirm what is true. Share this with someone who needs to hear it before the 29th of June. Subscribe so you do not miss the mid-retrograde update on the 12th of July, when Mercury reaches its Cazimi with the Sunday at 20 degrees Cancer, because that single day is the eye of the storm, and what you do with it determines how the rest of the summer unfolds. You were not meant to find this video by accident. Your instincts brought you here. Trust them now the way you will wish you had trusted them. In July, when the retrograde is at full depth, and everyone around you is wondering why they feel like they are moving through water. You arrived early, you arrived informed. And that changes everything about what happens next.